Okay guys, now we're going to continue with part 2 of our distributive property notes. So hopefully you guys have turned to the second page. We need to talk about simplifying using distributive property and combining like terms. Now, an expression will be simplified is if it has no grouping symbols. Alright, so that's when we're talking about parentheses, brackets, alright, that type of thing, and that's where distributive property is going to come into play. And then it's also, what also has to be true for something to be simplified is all like terms have to be combined. So we need to go over a few things to understand all like terms being combined. Now remember in last homework we talked a little bit about what the terms of the expression are. Remember if we had 3x squared plus 2x plus 4, the terms were 3x squared, 2x, and then we take the minus 4 as a negative 4 because it's the same as plus a negative 4. Everything, all the terms are separated by addition signs. Now, two terms are called like terms when the variables are the same and are raised to the same power. So in order for them to be the same, variables the same, raised to the same power. For example, x and 11x are like terms. They both have just an x. Negative 4y and 7y are like terms because they just have a y. Now, if you looked at the terms 4x, 3x squared, and 6xy, those are not like terms because the variables and or the powers are different. For example, with 4x and 3x squared, you have an x and an x squared, so that doesn't make it alike. The 6xy has the extra y that the others don't, so they can't be like terms. Okay, so you got to understand that about like terms. Now, an important vocabulary word that you guys need to know right here is coefficient. A coefficient is a number that is multiplied by a variable in a term. The number is the coefficient of a variable. For example, in the term 3x squared, the number 3 is the coefficient of x squared. So 3 is what's being multiplied by the variable, so 3 is the coefficient. Now, when you combine like terms, you will add or subtract the coefficients, but the variable that's really important will stay the same. Alright, so let's move this up and let's look at which ones of these are going to be like terms. So which pairs of the terms are like terms, and if they're like terms, we're going to combine them. In number 1, we have 7a and 12a. Now, they both just have an a, so we would say yes, these are like terms. When we combine them, the a is going to stay the same, but we're going to add the coefficient. So 7 plus 12 will give us 19a. All right. Number 2, 4x and negative 6x. Are those like terms? Yes, they are. Okay, because they both have just x. And we would add the coefficients, which would be basically 4 plus a negative 6, which would give us a negative 2. Whoops, I didn't write that very well. Negative 2x. All right, the x stays the same. Now, number 3, we got 3r and 4rs. Are these like terms? No, they are not, because we have a 3r with just an r. The 4rs has the extra s, so they're not like terms. Number 4, 6a and 6b are not like terms. It doesn't matter that the coefficients are both 6. What you have to really concentrate on is the variables. One's a, one's b, so they're not like terms. All right, number 5, we got negative 8y and y. Those are like terms. They're both just y's. Now, when we combine these, realize that we assume if there's just a y, we assume that there's a 1 in front of there. So when you combine them, you would have negative 7y. All right. Here, number 6, we got negative 11 and negative 11x. This would be no. Okay. We have negative 11, which is what we call a constant. There's no variable involved that's going to say negative 11, and negative 11x with a variable. We can't combine them. Number 7, a squared and 7a. All right. These are, we would say no, because they're both a's, but one has a squared, so it has a different exponent, so they're not like terms. Okay, and number 8, 3a squared and 3a. Doesn't matter, the coefficients are the same. Variables are to a different power, so we'd say no, those are not like terms. All right, so let's move this up. Okay, let's do some examples together. It says use the distributive property to and combine like terms to simplify. Okay, the distributive property is what you're going to get rid of the grouping symbols with. So you're almost always going to get rid of the grouping symbols first, or the parentheses, and then you're going to combine like terms. So looking at this, I have, number one, I have negative 5 times x minus 1, and then that quantity minus 6. So we need to do distributive property with this negative 5 first. And because it's a negative 5, I might want to think of switching this minus 1 to plus a negative 1. So we'd have negative 5 times x would give us negative 5x, and then it's like negative 5 times a negative 1 would be a positive 5, and then minus 6. Okay, so we've gotten rid of the grouping symbols, but now we need to combine any like terms that we can. Well, there's no other x's to combine this negative 5x with. So we're going to have negative 5x, that's going to stay the same. And we got to think of this as 5 minus 6, or plus a negative 6, which would give us plus a negative 1 or minus 1. And you could write it either way, either plus a negative 1 or minus 1. And that would be your answer. Okay, let's look at number 2. You always want to get rid of your grouping symbols first, so here's where distributive property comes into play. So we could make this, like, if we want to make our lives a little easier, sometimes these problems are a little easier if you change all the subtraction to addition first, and the sign on the number right after. So this minus 4 becomes plus a negative 4. This minus 10d becomes plus a negative 10d. So when we do distributive, we're going to have 12d plus a negative 48 plus the negative 10d. Okay, so we've gotten rid of grouping symbols. Now we want to combine like terms. I usually start with my variables first, and if there's more than one variable, I go in alphabetical order. We would just have d's here. So I have 12d and negative 10d. You can see I'm even underlining them. I sometimes like to use like actual visual cues to make sure I'm combining the right things. So 12d plus a negative 10d. This is going to give me a positive 2d. And then the negative 48 is nothing to combine that with, so it stays negative 48. So we have 2d plus a negative 48 for an answer, or you could write it as 2d minus 48. Either way, either answer would be acceptable. All right, let's look at this next one, number 3. Start with doing distributive property, get rid of, we've got 2 parentheses this time, or 2 grouping symbols, so we're going to take care of those first. So we deal with the first one, we're going to do 15 times y, and get 15y, plus 15 times 1 gives us 15, plus 10 times y gives us 10y, and then 10 times 2 gives me minus 20. Now I didn't change that one, that's okay, because I can see this is a pretty simple one. All right. Now, the most common mistake people make is they forget to multiply that second number in the parentheses, so make sure that you do that as well. Now, let's combine like terms. We've got 15y and 10y gives me 25y. 15y plus 10y gives me 25y. And then we have plus 15 and minus 20 would leave me with a minus 5. Okay, now this next problem, number 4, you notice we have 3 parentheses and a whole lot of numbers and a lot of subtraction signs. So this is one where it gets a little more complicated. I do want to change all my subtraction to addition. I'm more apt to get it right, and I could just know I'm always going to put down an addition in between all of my terms. So I'm going to first of all go through and switch all of these. So we're going to start, the 10's not going to change, plus this 4 is not going to change, and then this parentheses we're going to make this 3x plus a negative 2. Now here's one that's really important. This is minus 8, so let's make that plus a negative 8. So we're going to be distributing eventually in a negative 8. X minus 5 is going to become x plus a negative 5. And then plus 7, and then 4 minus x is going to become 4 plus the opposite of x. So now we changed all those. I know everything inside there is going to become addition. And then I know addition's commutative, and it can help me out in combining like terms later on. So here I'm going to go through and do my distributive property. So I have 10 plus, I'm going to distribute in that 4. 4 times 3x would give me 12x, and then don't forget to multiply it by the second number. Okay, 4 times negative 2 is going to give me negative 8. And see, right off I can put a plus in between because I know I've already all changed them to plus. Negative 8 times x would be negative 8x plus negative 8 times negative 5 is a positive 40 plus every time I know I'm just going to have an addition sign. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 7 times the opposite of x would make it negative 7x. Now I can combine like terms. I usually start again with my variables. Let's see, I have what? 12x, negative 8x, and negative 7x. Well, negative 8x and negative 7x would be negative 15x. Plus 12x would be a negative 3x. Then plus, we got to combining here. Well, I have 10 and negative 8 would give me 2. 2 plus that 28 would be 30. Plus the 40 gives me 70. So I have negative 3x plus 70. Okay, so number 5. Here's another one that I have a lot of parentheses, so I'm going to go through and change all my subtraction to addition. So I know it's all addition. I could do commutative property and move things around if I need to. All right, so we're going to make this 3w plus a negative 7. That plus 12 stays the same. Minus 3 is going to become plus a negative 3 times that 2w plus 4. That stays the same. Now here's one that's a little tricky that you got to be careful of. We have a minus sign in front of that w minus 1. Well, I'm going to change that to, and it's kind of understood, I'm going to change that minus to a plus and put like a negative 1 in front there, because it's kind of like assuming that there's a 1 in front of that parentheses. So we're going to be distributing a negative 1 in. And that tends to mess people up sometimes. This w minus 1 is going to become w plus a negative 1. And then plus, and then we have 8, and then it's w minus 2 is going to become w plus a negative 2. Now I can do my distributive property. This first few numbers are going to stay the same. 3w plus a negative 7 plus 12. Now I'm going to distribute plus negative 3 times 2w would be a negative 6w. Plus negative 3 times 4 would be a negative 12. Can't forget that negative sign. Plus negative 1 times w would be a negative 1w. Plus negative 1 times negative 1 would be just 1. Plus 8 times w would be 8w. Plus 8 times a negative 2 would be a negative 16. Now I can combine like terms. I've got, doing my variables first, I've got 3w, negative 6w, negative 1w, and 8w. Well, 3w and negative 8w would be 11w. And negative 6w and negative 1w would be negative 7w, so that would leave me with 4w left over. And then look at my constants. Well, what's nice here is I have a plus 12 and plus a negative 12. Those are opposites, so they will cancel each other. So then what I have left is a negative 7, a 1, and a negative 16. So negative 7 plus 1 would be a negative 6, plus 16, that would be plus a negative 22. Or you could write it as 4w minus 22. Okay, guys, I want you to pause your notes here and try the practice problems on the next page, and then we'll go over them. So pause it now and try the practice problems, and then start it back up again when you're done. Alright guys, hopefully you've tried all these practice problems. Now let's go over them real quick, see how you did. Alright, so number 1, we have 4 times n plus 4 plus 3. We're going to do our distributive property first. We're going to get 4n plus 16 plus 3. There's nothing to combine the 4n with, so we're going to keep that the same. The 16 and the 3 we can combine to get 19. So our answer is 4n plus 19. That one wasn't too bad. Let's look at number 2. I'm going to start with distributive property again to get rid of the grouping symbols. So 3 times y would give us 3y. 3 times 4 would give us 12. And plus 2y. Now to combine like terms, we can combine the 3y and the 2y to get 5y. And there's nothing to combine the 12 with, so it's going to be 5y plus 12. Alright, number 3. I see a minus in there and some negatives involved, so I'm going to change this to plus a negative 3. So when I do distributive property, we're going to have negative 10p plus, and a negative 10 times a negative 3 would be a positive 30, and then plus 6p. So combining like terms, negative 10p plus 6p would be a negative 4p plus 30, because there's nothing to combine that with. And there's your final answer. Alright, Here's another long one with some subtractions involved, so I'm going to change those right off. So we are going to make this plus a negative 1 plus a negative 6 plus a negative 3 and plus a negative 4. If you wanted to rewrite it completely down below, you could. Just saving us a little bit of time here. So doing distributive here, we're going to have 9m plus negative 9 plus 4 times 2m would be 8m plus a negative 24 plus 3 times 3m would be 9m plus negative 3 times the negative 4 would be a positive 12, and then plus the 8m at the end. All right, now combining like terms, we have, oh, I forgot the negative sign on that second 9m. We're going to do negative 3 times the 3m. Kind of forgot that, didn't I? It would kind of help. Because I'm noticing here that 9m and negative 9m are opposites, so I can cancel those. And so we have 8m and 8m would give me 16m. And then looking at your constants, we have negative 9, negative 24, and 12. Well, 12 and negative 24 would be negative 12 plus the 9 would give me plus a negative 21. Or again, you could think of it as 16m minus 21. Either answer. Okay. Now, let's look at this last one. Okay, and we've got a lot of subtractions, and I threw in some fractions here. So let's change all our subtractions to additions. We're going to make this plus a negative 6 plus a negative 2/3 and plus a negative 4. So here we're going to have 13, and doing our distributive first. Negative 6 times p would be a negative 6p plus negative 6 times 30 would be a negative 30 plus. Now 12 times half p, if you take half of 12, you'd get 6p plus. Now 12 times the 2/3, the 3 and the 12 will cross cancel. You get 4 times a negative 2, which is a negative 8. And then plus, it'd be 2 times 8p, which is 16p, plus 2 times the negative 4 would be a negative 8. Now, combining like terms, I have negative 6p and 6p, or actually opposites, those will cancel. All I have left is 16p for variables, so that's what that's going to be. And then I have 13, the negative 30, negative 8, and negative 8. So negative 8 is 16, negative 16, plus the negative 30 would be negative 46, plus 30 would be a negative 33 or minus 33. You could write it either way. All right, hopefully you guys, this helped, guys, give you a feel for this, and you can try to apply these skills to your homework. Good luck with it.